Some simple rules. Please mute your mic, but feel free to interrupt us if you have urgent question about the presented topics. And you can use also the chat to ask questions. And at the end of the presentation, we will have some time to discuss what we have presented. The agenda of this seminar, we will speak is in 3 parts. In the first part, we will speak about copyright and the importance of rights management for your research activities. In the second part, we will see the topic of rights management connected with the different roads of open access. You remember green roads, gold roads, hybrid roads, and so on. And in the third part, we will speak about open licenses and in particular about Creative Commons licenses. A brief disclaimer, we are from different states and our states have different copyright laws. In this presentation, we will address the issue of copyrights only taking into account the common elements in our countries and not entering in the specificity of individual national laws. To start this presentation, I ask you a question. It's very simple. But not always clear. Who owns the copyright on your PhD thesis? You can answer directly or you can answer in the chat. The tutor, you as PhD students, the university. The copyright is equally shared between tutor and PhD students, or the copyright is equally shared between student and university. Have you any idea of this? Who owns the copyright on your thesis?
We have one answer in the chat, which is us as a PhD student, I mean. Okay, we have new answer. University, shared between student and university. University come a lot of time. Students also. Okay, student and university. Someone have actually no idea.
Okay.
So, university again. Depends on the status of PhD student, employee, self-funded, student and university.
Okay. You, as PhD students, owns the copyright of your on your PhD thesis. It is possible that your university asks you to give the university some rights, for example, the rights to archive the PhD thesis in the institutional repository or some other rights, but you own the copyright on your PhD thesis. And then another question, your PhD thesis is a collection of the articles published during your PhD studium. Are you entitled to reproduce your articles in the thesis, and can you do it without any kind of restrictions? You can answer in the chat or you can open your mic and speak. No idea?
In the chat, we have, yes, someone who don't know. It depends who was the article editor. Someone say, I think we are supposed to use quotation. And that's all for the moment.
Okay. Okay, you cannot reproduce your article in the PhD thesis unless it is native an open access article. So you have to observe some restrictions, and these are the restriction and the rules defined by the single publisher. Do you know where you can find the rules of the publisher about open access or about reproduction of articles? Do you know which is the source of this information? You can find this information in the Sherpa Romeo database, or you can find this information in the website of the publisher, okay? Why it is important to know who owns the copyright on your work, because if you own the copyright on your work, you can manage it. And this gives you the possibility to decide about who will have access to your work, what he or she will be able to do with your work, and what you will be able to do with your work. So rights management is very important because it affects you whether you are a user of someone else's work or if you are the author of a research work. We have here a very simple definition of copyright. Copyright is ownership of control of the rights to the use and distribution of work of creative expression. So this is a very, very simple definition of copyright. What is protected by copyright? Surely artistic work, literary works, but also scientific works. So artistic works, literary works, and scientific works are protected by the same kind of law, by the copyright law. Which rights are involved in the protection? We have moral rights, such as rights of a right of paternity or right of integrity of the work. These rights are not transferable. And then we have the so-called economic rights, rights to reproduce or copy a work, right to distribute, right to adapt or modify, to translate, and so on. This economic rights can be transferred to a third party, normally to a publisher. Copyright protects the expression of an idea and not the idea itself, and copyright arises automatically on creation of a work. To be protected, a work must be original. Copyright in our law systems, unfortunately, lasts for 70 years after the death of the creator. And only the economic, we have seen in the slide, in the previous slides, only economic rights can be transferred. And they can be transferred in an exclusive or non-exclusive way. We will see what does it mean. What is the difference in your, we have here two objects, two artistic or creative works protected by the copyright law. On the one side, we have a CD of Red Hot Chili Peppers. On the other side, we have an article on COVID-19. The protection is the same for these two objects. Do you see a difference? Okay.
Someone in the chat say no difference.
No difference, okay. I mean, it is the interest of Red Hot Chili Pepper to protect their work in order to receive royalties, because they can gain from these royalties, and they can continue to compose songs and music and so on. It is quite different for the author of the article of COVID-19, because they are normally paid from state for their work. They don't gain from the publication of the article. But the CD of Red Hot Chili Pepper and the scientific work are protected in the same way and from the same law, and that is the copyright law. When your article is accepted by a publisher, by a journal, this is an example from the Elsevier website, you have two possibilities. The first one is to transfer your copyright in an exclusive way to the publisher. And in this case, as you can read in this text, this assignment of rights means that I have granted to the copyright owner, that means to Elsevier, to the publisher, the exclusive right to publish and reproduce the article or any part of the article in print, electronic, and all other media, in any form, in all languages, and so on. In an exclusive way, that means that the copyright owner receive these rights, and it is the only subject that receive this right in an exclusive way. You grant the right to the publisher. You don't have this right for you. You have granted to the publisher. And the result is that this article, you see, this copyright 2021 European Association for the Study of the Liver, published by Elsevier. So the license, the copyright, sorry, is granted to the scientific association through the publisher. Here we have another situation when we publish an open access article in the same journals, in the same hybrid journals, the Journal of Hepatology. Here we publish, we pay in order to have an open access article. And we don't transfer all rights in an exclusive way to the publisher. We grant a license to publish to the publisher. What does it mean? That you grant an irrevocable, non-exclusive license to publish, to distribute, and use any part of the manuscript to the publisher. What does it mean? That you grant this rights, but you maintain these rights also for you. You have granted it in a non-exclusive way. And here you see copyright the authors and published by Elsevier on behalf of. If you assign the copyright exclusively, such in the first example, if you assign the copyright exclusively to the publisher, you may not be able to reuse your article in teaching and research work, to include the article in future publication, for example, in your PhD thesis, to make derivative works based on the article, and to display or make presentations of your work. So, Violaine, I give you the floor.
Okay, thanks, Paola. I will share my screen. Does someone have a question, an important question which make you some difficulty to understand
one
session?
We have one question, I think.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question about a thing that you just said. So you said that, if I got this right, that if we we assign the copyright exclusively to the publisher, that means that we cannot include it in future publications like our thesis. But what if we don't publish our thesis, or if we publish it, and when we publish it, we take it out?
But what if, sorry?
I mean, our thesis is not automatically published. Like, does it mean that we cannot even include it in the thesis, which just goes, to the jury, because I'm in France, or does it mean that we cannot even include it in that version of the thesis that actually may not be published at all?
I can answer to the question for France, not for every European country. Lucia, for France, your thesis will be published. Published not means publish like a book with a publisher. You could publish your PhD thesis like a book in a publisher, especially if you are in a social and human science field. But in France and in Italy as well, and maybe in other countries, your thesis is published. It means it is deposit on an open repository, HAL in France, an institutional repository, and everyone can have access and read your PhD thesis. And regarding the law, put something on the internet and everyone can look the thing, so your PhD thesis, means published. Published, it's give something to see to the public. This is answer to your question?
Yeah, I guess it raises more questions, but I'm not sure that they would be of interest to everybody here, because they would be like more and more specifically towards France. So maybe
we can see later if you want.
Sure.
At the end of the presentation.
Sure, thank you.
I don't know if you have other questions. If not, we can go on. Okay, so I share my screen. Okay, so now I will talk to you about right management, but regarding an open access point of view. I will show you what you can or cannot do with your article manuscript based on the law and agreements that Paola show you later, and regarding an open access view. Okay, so first, I will not come back in detail on open access features. I know if you see the last session, I think you already know open access ways now, but I would like to do a quick reminder because I will use and publisher use some specific vocabulary from publisher and librarian words. And I want to show you this specific vocabulary like that. We are sure we are talking of the same thing. Okay, so there is a basic publication cycle. So you perform your research, you write an article is peer-reviewed, is accepted in best case, is published, and then is archiving, and based on your article, other people can do research, etc., etc. Okay, so now where is open access? First, you can perform open access by sharing your preprints. Preprints, it's at this stage of your publication cycle. Preprint is the first version of your paper, which is submitted to a publisher. So it's your paper before peer reviewing. Sharing preprint is more for scientific and technical fields. And you can share preprint on different preprint repository like arXiv, bioRxiv, medRxiv, paleoRxiv, and a lot of others. After, if you want to open access to your research, to your article research, you can publish in open access journal. You can publish in Diamond open access or Gold open access. Basically, the difference is in Diamond open access, you don't pay to publish and people don't pay for read. In a Gold open access, people don't pay for read. It's an open access, but you have to pay to publish. And a last way to open your articles is you published in open access or in subscription journals as usual. And after publication, you can drop off your article on an institutional repository. Doing that, you perform green open access. You already heard that in the previous session. Okay, so now let's have a look on right management at this different stage of the cycle, and right management regarding the sharing and reutilization of your work. Okay, so first, what can you do with your preprint? So here is a basic example of preprint. Basically, preprint is your word typing manuscript, or LaTeX if you are in physical and mathematics. It's your manuscript before sending it to a publisher. So this is your work, a teamwork maybe, but your work of you or your team. And you control the copyright of it because it's your work. You have the option to add a license on your preprint. We are going to see that later in the last part with Rasmus, which license and what are these licenses. If you don't add a license to your preprint, it's a basic intellectual property protected work. So it's copyright, all right reserved, which means all right reserved to the author for the moment. So basically, only you can distribute or reproduce your preprint article. Okay, so if you want to share this preprint, you can share it on preprint server, archive, and the other. And if you do that, doing so, you keep your rights. You have to grant a non-exclusive license to publish to the preprint server, and this is normal because you have to do that to allow them to share the paper. Not you don't share the paper. Archive, as an example, share the paper, so you have to allow them to share the paper. But it's a non-exclusive grant of rights, and you keep your right. And more important, you can publish your paper after you deposit it on a preprint server. Most of publishers are okay with this preprint sharing ways of open access. Some no, but most of scientific and technical publishers are okay. But if you want to be sure if you can do that, you have to check the policy of the publisher regarding open access. You can do that. You can do that on the publisher website, but it's kind of very complicated maze. So there is a useful website we can help you with that. It's Sherpa Romeo. Maybe you already know Sherpa Romeo. I will show you how it works and how it can help you to understand what you can and can't do with your manuscript when you publish in a scientific journal, academic journal. Just a quick warning, if you share your paper on a preprint server, many preprint servers not allow material to be removed. This is because preprint servers are preprint archive, and this is for that the preprints remain a part of permanent scholarly records. This is a kind of archive function. So it's a little warning you have to keep in your mind. And here at the end of the presentation, we give you useful FAQ about preprint and copyright. So as we are going to share the presentation with you on Zenodo, you can click on this link if you want to know more. Okay, so now I will show you how to use Sherpa Romeo with two examples. Okay, so I don't go on Sherpa Romeo website, I use screenshots. So here is the Sherpa Romeo homepage. It's a very easy to use platform with basic research fields. And you can perform research using journal title or ISSN if you know it, or the publisher name if you don't know the exact title of the journal. So I perform a first research, with a French journal, but okay, everything is in English, so okay. It's a social and human science journal, which is a diamond open access journal. So here is the results page from Sherpa Romeo. So we have basic journal information at the top of the page. And at the bottom of the page, we have the what we want, what we want to understand. Today, we have the publisher policy regarding open access, regarding different versions of your paper. Okay, so let's have a focus on this publisher policy. Okay, so here is the part, with information about preprint. Preprint, like I said before, it's the submit version of your paper. And we can see that for our social and human science journal, preprint sharing is not allowed by the journal. you can see it, not permit. It's easy to understand. Okay, a second example, I take science and technical and medicinal journal, medical image analysis. I perform the same research on Sherpa Romeo. And okay, here is the results page. You see we have more information. So let's have a focus on information about preprint, submit version. Okay, we can see you have no embargo. This is here. So you can share your preprint if you want to publish in this journal in any website and in more websites. And if you want to know more, you have to click on plus on the right of the page. So, okay, let's do that. You have more detailed windows which open. So basically, what this means, you can share your preprint before publish in medical analysis, image analysis, sorry, with no embargo. So you can publish your preprint when you want. You don't have to wait any time after the submission, but you have some condition to follow. You have to link the published article if it's published later. You can share your preprint on any website and on two indicated preprint repository, archive and repick. Okay. If you have some question about preprints, if you have a quick question, you can. And at the end, we will take more questions. So, okay. So this was preprint. So now, what can you do with your accepted manuscript? Accepted manuscript, sometimes we talk about post-print version of your paper. It's the same. It's your author accepted manuscript. So here is some example. You see, it's your basically it's your final work files on your computer.
Sorry, Violaine, I
yes.
interrupt you. We have a question. Can preprints affect the acceptance of the paper?
No, in most of the case, I go back. Most of publishers are okay with preprint sharing and sorry, and will publish your paper even if you share your preprint. Sometimes publishers did not allow preprint sharing, and if they did not allow, they kind of don't like preprint sharing, and they can it can affect not the acceptance after peer reviewing, but your paper could be rejected before peer reviewing, rejected by the editor, by the publisher. If publisher is okay with preprint sharing, it has no effect on the acceptance of the paper. In reality, one time told me that she received an email from the editor, which basically told her, you have shared your preprint, so I don't want to publish your article. But preprint sharing in some scientific fields like physics, informatics, mathematics, economics is a well-known practice. So if your publisher is okay, it's not an issue.
I would also like to add that there is actually a list, I can send a link to it, where you can see the policies of different journals, policies on preprint archiving in order to have it published later on. I can send it and put the link in the chat.
Okay, great, thanks. Maybe I can add your link to the presentation at the end. Okay, thanks. Okay, so let's get back to post-print, accepted manuscript. So basically your last Word or LaTeX file in your computer after peer reviewing. So it's an accepted paper. It's the final content, but without publisher layout. So I put here 2 examples of accepted manuscript you can have in your computer. So this is your final works. Like I said, with no publisher mention, with no logo of the publisher or layout of the publisher. And unless the preprints, the accepted version of your manuscript is concerned by the publication agreement that Paola showed you before. In the publication agreement, there is some mention about sharing postprint allowed or not allowed. So if you want to share this version, if you share this version and not the final published version, it's because you publish in a subscription journals. So you cannot share the final published version because it's the publisher property. Because you sign agreements. So if you want to share something, you have to share the accepted manuscript. We are talking about green open access, which is sharing manuscript on institutional repository. Can you do that? Can you not? Do you have to wait some embargo? Again, you can check the publisher website if you have a lot of time with you, and if you like Enigma, or you can go on Sherpa Romeo website to have some basic information easy to find. General rules, more often you can share your accepted manuscript, but often with an embargo period. You have to wait some time after publication before sharing your preprint. Here I put some embargo period from well-known publishing groups. You have some variation for a single publisher, Elsevier as an example, wants embargo from 6 to 36 months. This variation is because of difference between journal from the Elsevier publishing groups. So you can see you have a lot of embargo period allow. You can have no embargo period, and you can have 3 years embargo period. Okay, so let's check that on Sherpa Romeo again. So let's get back on our first example. So the Social and Human Science journal. So here is where you can find information about your accepted manuscript, your postprint, the accepted version. For this journal, sharing postprint is not allowed either. So you can only share the published version, and I don't know if you remember, but I said it at the beginning. It's a Diamond Open Access journal, so you can share the published version. With our second example, the Medical Image Analysis Journal, we can see we have 3 different information regarding sharing accepted version. So it's more complicated than for preprint. And this free information, this free the three different things you are allowed to do depends on where you want to share your accepted manuscript and who is your funder. I will show you in detail. So remember, to use detail, you have to click on plus button. So the first one, pathway A. If I click on the plus button, I have more information. This means that you can do some sharing stuff, but you have to be funded by funder, which are in this list. You have a prerequisite funders. If you are funded by one of these academic research funder, you can share your postprint with a 12-month embargo for this journal. You have to add a specific license, Rasmus will show you, and you can share, but only in institutional repository or subject repository. And you have some condition to follow. So now let's see the third one, the pathway C, because pathway C is in the same place. You see, location are the same, institutional repository or subject repository, but you have no funder prerequisites. So it's for other funder than those list in pathway A. And here you have to wait 24 months before sharing your postprint. You have to add a license, a specific license, and you have condition to follow. And now the last one, pathway B. Pathway B is for a different location. It's if you want to share your accepted manuscript on your author's, your own homepage. Basically, it's you know, your personal page on your laboratory website. Maybe you don't have this page, and you can also share on some specific repository, archive and repic again, with no embargo, but only on this location. You always have to put a specific license, and you always have condition to follow. So different pathway on Sherpa Omeo are from different location or different funders. Okay. Do you have specific question about that? No? Okay. So now preprint accepted version. So now what you can do with your published manuscript. So the final manuscript as it will be published in the journal. So there is an example you see with journal layout, journal logo. So this is your published work, but the copyright is owned by the publisher. Because of the agreement contract you sign, the agreement contract that Paola showed you. Or if it's an open access journal, there is on the paper an open license, and Rasmus will show you what are open license. If you publish in subscription journal, you can't share this version because it's the publisher's version and you cannot share it. If you published in open access journal, you can share this version with an open license. Like I say, you will see that in a few minutes. Just a quick reminder, you have to check the license because the readers and you don't have all the rights with the published version of your article, but basically you can share your article on an institutional repository. This is the green open access way. Okay, so now this open license I'll mention.
Sorry, there
yes?
is a question.
Okay.
Does publishing my thesis on general repository like HAL decrease its chances to get published with single publisher like Taylor and Francis and likes later?
Okay, if you it depends. It depends on the agreements you will have with the publisher. But basically, if your thesis is shared on an institutional repository, like HAL, which is a French institutional repository, maybe the publisher don't want to publish your thesis as it is shared because it's the same content. So it's already open access. So the publisher basically will say, I cannot sell my book if it's already open. But sometimes publishers are okay with open access. Sometimes you have to change a lot of things of your PhD. So you can have the first version, your PhD version, on an open repository, and another version which will be published later with a publisher. So basically, it depends on the publisher. Sorry, I don't think it's helped you a lot, but I don't know if Paola or Rasmus, you want to add something?
No, it's the same. It's the same with the preprint. I mean, some publisher agree with the open access and with the preprint publishing, and other publisher don't agree. If you speak of Taylor and Francis, I guess you speak about humanities and social sciences area, and I think you have to change the form of the form, not the content of your PhD thesis.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also think that we have to remember that they actually make a great profit on the work you conduct and develop, and they need that in order to make a profit. The publishers. So therefore, it's my impression that they don't decline or reject PhD theses that have been previously made official in a repository. Yeah. Right, I think it's my turn now. I'll share my screen. Can you see the full screen version of my slides? Great.
Not the full screen version.
Okay, what do you see? With the notes and all, everything?
Yes, with the notes.
Okay. What do you see now? Do you see the back end of my slides?
It's the same with the note.
Oh, annoying. And the same here as well. You see, you don't see the full screen. Okay. No. You know what? That doesn't matter. Can you see my slides here? And then I'll change manual. I can zoom a bit in. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Typical Zoom problems. But I can start introducing myself. My name is Rasmus, and I come from Copenhagen University Library for University of Copenhagen, and I will give you an introduction to open licensing, and I will focus on the Creative Commons licenses, simply because they're the most used licensing in research and in research publishing. I will begin with, I will give you describe the anatomy of the licenses, how they actually work and how the different license terms work together, and in combination make the 6 Creative Commons licenses. But I will also show how these licenses are used. I will show some examples how they're actually used on an article level. But why apply CC licenses in the first place, and what are the benefits of Creative Commons licenses? Well, first of all, it's a great way to make research and make any work free available for others, versus the default copyright, the old rights reserved copyright. That means that the copyright holder or the originator has the exclusive right to use or display it, use the work, distribute the work. The CC license actually, all of the licenses make it possible to distribute without get permission for the originators. It also reduces the uncertainties and explicate terms of usage of the work, how the work can be used in order of the licenses that have been applied on them, on the works. There are international standard licenses, the Creative Commons licenses. There are actually a lot of journals that like, or a lot of publishers that like to use their own custom-made, their own bespoke licenses. And they are, even though they can be very like the Creative Commons licenses, they're not easy to recognize, and therefore it's much better to use the Creative Commons licenses because they are easy to make an expression of, and you know ahead of the usage how the license terms, what they imply. The licenses are machine readable. It's also a great way to enhance the scientific collaboration due to the fact that it's open content. It can be shared across country borders. And it's a way to promote the verification of the research, especially if the research data is made available with a CC license. It can easily be verified by other researchers. And also, of course, it quite often required by funders that, and also publishers and institutions, that specific license is attached to the work. But it's important to be aware of that the licenses are binding and they cannot be revoked by the licensor. It's only copyrightable works that can be CC licensed. So works protected by other intellectual property rights, such as trademarks or patents, cannot be CC licensed. And only the copyright holder can decide which license should be applied on her or his work. And CC licenses are not recommended for licensing software, simply because CC licenses only protect the user face of the software, not the code behind it. And that's actually the code that you want to distribute with a license. So therefore, there are developed other licenses for licensing software, such as GNU licenses. So here we have the licenses. We have on the left hand, we had the 4 different license terms, and these all 6 licenses consist of these. All 6 licenses consist of these 4 license terms in different combinations. The attribution license, the first one, is actually part of all 6 licenses. It requires that each time work is used, there must be made attribution to the creator. When it comes to research publications, it will be the authors. Share-alike means that if you make any changes to the work, that could be you make a translation of it to another language, you're allowed to share it, but you may only share it with the exact same license. No derivatives means that you are not allowed to make any changes to the work. You can only use it and share it in its original form. None. Any questions? Sorry, I thought I heard something. No. Non-commercial means that you may not use it for commercial purposes. So we have all the 6 licenses here, the most open in the top and the least open one in the bottom. And actually the most used one in research publishing is the CC BY license. And for many of you, probably also the most, the one you know most. And the second on the second most used one is the CC BY in CND, the actually least open one. And also possible to, when you have created a work, to waive your copyright. That means that you donate your work to the public domain, means that you waive your copyright and make it possible for anyone to use your work without giving credit, or they can use it for all purposes, actually. And who's interested in that? Well, some are actually. Perhaps you just want your work to be owned by everyone. It could also be that you want your work to, you don't want to get recognition of the work and be named in relation to the work. And sometimes it's also actually required. For instance, Horizon Europe actually require, I'll get back to that later, but they actually require that the metadata to the research you develop and that they fund, that the metadata to the article or the publication must be licensed with a CC public domain or CC0. There are 3 layers in the CC license. Perhaps there is no. There are 3 layers in the CC license. First of all, the legal foundation. That's like the legal layer, but not specific, not very reader friendly. But that's like the foundation of the licenses, and that they actually can be applied as copyright licenses. Then we have the reader-friendly license. That's perhaps the one you're mostly aware of or know of. That's license terms that you read when you attempt read the license terms applied to a specific work. And the last layer is the machine-readable layer that makes it possible for works applied, works with a CC license applied on it to be findable in other systems. That could be discovery systems, IT systems. And I hope you can see it. We will, of course, share our slides, and it will be possible for you to get dig more near into these. This is like a chart of how the different licenses can be combined to each other. For instance, if you have two different data sets and each have one specific CC license, you can actually see here how they not can be combined into each other. And of course, the least open the licenses are, the less chances you have to actually make it possible to combine the works to others. This is a very good overview of how the different licenses actually can work together. And this is like, now you heard about the difference between open access content and toll access content or subscription content. Here is just an example how the copyright is the copyright caption appears on different article types. Here is an example of a toll access article. As you can see here, it says that the copyright is held by the publisher. Give the publisher the exclusive right to make a financial benefit or gain a profit of the work. And another thing that's actually quite interesting about subscription content is that even though you need to pay money to get access to it, and of course a lot of your institution already pay subscription to it, and therefore you have remote access to the content, but they actually also make a profit on specific elements within an article, and they often use the Copyright Clearance Center to clear the rights on behalf of the journal. So let's say that this is an example from a Sage journal, that you wish to use a specific figure from this article. You choose among different options here in the form, and then you in the end it will calculate the price, the cost they will charge you in order to reuse the figure from that article. And that's like the opposite way with the open access content. Here we have an example of an open access article. You can see here, it says the copyright is held by the authors. It has a Creative Commons CC BY NC ND applied on it. Makes it possible not to use it in a commercial purpose or make any changes to the work, but you are free to share it with anyone without asking for permission in order to do that. But there are also content in specific articles. There are licenses with a more permissive license. For instance, here that's a picture from an open access article. I found it in a image database. When I click the license here, it tells me that it's licensed with CC BY, so I can actually use this image, grab it, and add it to my own publication, display it, as long as I add an attribution to the originators. So Creative Commons licenses actually provide you with the option to share content without asking permission, without paying any money for the users you wish to, the way you wish to use the work. And here, I just want to promote this really great tool. DOAJ stands for Directory of Open Access Journals. They have indexed a lot of open access journals that live up to pretty strict open access criteria. Only pure open access journals are indexed. So hybrid journals, means journals that use subscription, but also open access options, are not indexed here. But it's a way to find gold open access journals and also diamond open access journals, journals that do not use APCs. And they have this really great filter here where you can look up journals that use a specific license. So let's say that you are funded by a specific funder, and the funder require that your article must be published open access with a CC BY license. Then you can actually use the filters here, and of course you can also use the filter to find journals that are relevant within your discipline. And Sherpa Romeo, as mentioned earlier, also now mentioned again, is also a great tool to look up which licenses the publishers use. Here's just an example. It says here it uses two different licenses, CC BY NC. But what's quite normal, at least when it comes to the business model of hybrid journals, they often charge us according to the license you choose to the work you use to pay an APC for. The more permissive license, the more open license you choose to use, the more expensive the APC will be. As you can see here, the regular charge for a CC BY license is more than $2,494 US. The regular charge for a CC BY NC or CC BY NCND is $1,969 US. Sorry, not dollars. Pound. Sorry. And now I just want to mention the requirements from funders, because due to the Coalition S and Plan S, the plan to make funded research open access, the requirements actually become made more strict also to which license that are applied to the content funded by these funders. For instance, the EU frame program Horizon Europe requires that the content they provide money to must be published with a CC BY license, at least when it's in an article form. But they permit for long text formats, they permit less open licenses such as CC BY NC or CC BY ND. And also the metadata, as I told you before, the metadata of the articles, or the publications, must be licensed with a CC0, the public domain license. One of the big issues when it comes to be compliant with the funders' requirements to CC license is, at least if you want to rely on the green open access route, is that they actually not, a lot of them actually permit the use of CC licenses, as you can see here. And if you use Horizon Europe as an example, they require CC BY license. And as you can see here, none of these examples here actually permit the use of it. And even though there have been this right retention strategy that urges the publishers to permit more open licenses on the accepted manuscripts, it's still a great issue, at least if you want to publish, at least if you want to publish green open access, and you are funded by Horizon Europe. Example here from Sherberrovio. You can see here accepted version. The postprint tells me there's an embargo of 12 months, means that it's at least not compliant with the Horizon Europe. And CC BY NC, CC BY NCND, that's like the two different licenses that can be applied to the postprint. Also mean that this journal is simply not compliant with Horizon Europe, at least if you choose the green route. So either if you insist to publish in this journal, you need to pay at APC or choose another journal. But a lot of people might think that when you publish open access, you retain your copyright. And well, that's right to some extent. At least you give the publisher the exclusive, no, let me say it this way. When you publish in an open access, even though, of course, you pay an APC and you choose among specific licenses, the publisher can still actually require the copyright from the publishers. And what does that imply for the authors or the originators of the work? That simply applies that if copyright is transferred, the authors themselves will be licensees to the license that's applied on their work. So let's say they pay an APC and they publish in a journal that require a CC BY NC. Then the authors themselves may not use their own work under a commercial license, for commercial purposes, simply because the work have been licensed with a CC by NC. So, in order to use the work under more under other terms that the one that comes from the license, the author must retain the copyright to the work. And again, the way to find out whether you transfer or retain copyright, you need to look into the publisher agreement that you make with the publisher. And here, just an example from Elsevier. As you can see here, it says, for open access articles, authors will also have additional rights depending on the Creative Commons and user license that they select. This Creative Commons license sets out the rights that readers, brackets, as well as the authors have to reuse and share the article. So in this case, and I think this, it actually, that's almost all Elsevier's hybrid and gold open access journals actually require copyrights transferred to Elsevier. So that was my last slide. I think we have time for questions, not only for me, but to all of us.
I have a question about software publication.
Yeah.
What kind of license would you use to share your software as a software you develop in order to make it usable and just to be quoted for it if someone uses
it? In order to license it open, they often at least people who know a lot about software licensing recommends the GNU licenses. I can put it in the links. Sorry, I can put it in the slides. The links in the slide as well. A list of these licenses, software licenses. I think there's a Wikipedia article that made a whole list on all the different kind of software licenses that can be used.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any more questions? There's something in the chat.
Yeah, I put in the chat a link to the GNU website with the different license.
Great.
Now we have a question. What are our rights to share a preprint or accepted manuscript with other researchers by email or ResearchGate as an example? All the rights. On the preprint or accepted manuscript, it's your work, so you are the owner of the intellectual property rights, as well as if you perform a movie or music or painting or something else. So you decide how to diffuse it, and you can share one by one. You can perform one by one sharing. If someone sends you an email, you send the article. It's not a public diffusion. It's not a publication. It's one by one. So one by one, it's allowed. It's like for movies, private sharing. So it's okay.
But what is important also to remember is that let's say that you have a deposited version of your accepted manuscript, and you made it available there after the embargo duration, and it must have it's permitted. It must have a CC, let's say CC by NC license on, or CC by NC ND, the most strict Creative Commons license applied on it according to the journal's regulations. Then you are also licensee to it, and may not, of course, make changes to it because you transferred copyright to the publisher.
Okay, do you have some other question? Or not question, remarks, or if you want to share something or share something happened to you with publisher or... Okay.
I can also recommend to use the DOHA tool if you want to look up, because it can be difficult to find out whether an open access journal actually requires it. They're not so open about it, the journals, the publishers. So since almost all, at least the big gold open access journals are searchable in DOHA, you can look them up there and you can actually see the copyright allocation between publisher and authors, if they can make a if that's important for you to know before making an agreement on them or pay an ABC.
Okay, so thank you everyone to come to listen to us during your lunchtime. So the presentation will be shared on Zenodo. You will receive a link in a few days. The recording of the session will be shared on the For You Plus YouTube channel and some university channel, YouTube channel. So, okay, and if you have some question, don't hesitate to ask to librarian in your university. We are here to help you with all of these issues with publication, so you're welcome.